Witnesses describe the mood in the execution chamber as somber, and Tookie Williams showed no resistance as he was led into the execution chamber. No resistance. After Tookie Williams was strapped to the gurney, he struggled against the straps holding him down to look up at the press gallery behind him, and that was it, and to exchange glances with his supporters. Tookie Williams advocate and editor Barbara Becknell was also a witness to his execution. In the epilogue of Williams's reprinted memoir, Blue Rage, Black Redemption, Becknell reported that prior to Williams's arrival in the death chamber, he had promised her that he would find a way to lift up his head and smile at me at some point during his execution, no matter what was being done to him. And that's exactly what Tookie Williams did. The majority of set members are called soldiers. And they're typically 16 years of age to 22. Soldiers have a strong sense of commitment to their set. They're extremely dangerous because of their willingness to use violence, both to obtain the respect of gang members and to respond to any person who disrespects the set. Associates are not full members, but they identify with the gang and they take part in various criminal activities. Blood members commonly call themselves CKs for Crip Killer, or MOBs for member of Bloods, or Dogs, or Ballers. And that means ballers means drug dealers. The gang has a membership of about 15,000 to 20,000. In 123 cities and 33 U.S. states, primarily on the West Coast and to a lesser extent the Great Lakes region and the Southeast. Gangs include Bloods have been documented in the U.S. military in both U.S. and overseas bases. Blood sets also operate in the Canadian cities of Montreal and Toronto, 10,000 members. MS-13, there's 10,000 members. And with MS-13, the Bloods, we just learned, 20,000 worldwide. And there's 30,000 Crips. So 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 MS-13 Bloods, Crips, respectively. Arnold Schwarzenegger had summarized his denial, the basis of his denial of clemency for Tookie Williams, on the quote-unquote totality of circumstances. Tookie Williams provided no last words to the prison warden, but in an interview with WBAI Pacifica radio hours before his execution, Tookie Williams said this: "My lack of fear of this barbaric methodology of death, I rely upon my faith. It has nothing to do with machismo, with manhood, or with some pseudo former gang street code. This is pure faith and predicated on my redemption. So therefore, I just stand strong and continue to tell you, your audience and the world, that I am innocent. And yes, I have been a wretched person, but I have redeemed myself. And I say to you and all those who can listen and will listen that redemption is tailor-made for the wretched, and that's what I used to be. That's what I would like the world to remember me. That's how I would like my legacy to be remembered as, a redemptive transition, something that I believe is not exclusive just for the so-called sanctimonious, the elites, and it's not predicated on color or race or social stratum or one's religious background. It's accessible for everybody. That's the beauty about it. That's the beauty about it. And whether others choose to believe that I have redeemed myself or not, I worry not, because I know, and God knows, and you can believe that all the youths that I continue to help, they know too. So with that, I am grateful, and I say to you and everyone else, God bless. So take care. By 1971, a gang on Piru Street in Compton, California, known as the Piru Street Boys, formed and associated itself with the Crips as a set. After 2 years of peace, a feud began between the Pirus and the other Crip sets that later turned violent as gang warfare ensued between former allies. This battle continued. By 1973, the Pyrus wanted to end the violence and called a meeting with the other gangs targeted by the Crips. After a long discussion, the Pyrus broke all communications, all connections to the Crips, and they started their own organization that would eventually be called the Bloods, a street gang infamous for its rivalry with the Crips. Since then, other conflicts and feuds were started between many of the remaining Crip sets. It is a common misconception that Crip sets feud only with Bloods. In reality, they also fight each other. For example, the rolling 60s neighborhood Crips and the 83 gangster Crips have been rivals since 1979. Tookie Williams began to live an iconic double life in which he worked an illegal job as an anti-gang youth counselor in Compton, while also serving as the overboss for one of the largest gangs in Los Angeles. Tookie Williams would work as a counselor and study sociology at Compton College during working hours, then spend his free time participating in numerous violent attacks against the Bloods. The Crips became popular throughout southern Los Angeles as more youth gangs joined. At one point, they outnumbered non-Crip gangs by 3-1, sparking disputes with non-Crip gangs including the LA Brims, Athens Park Boys, the Bishops, the Drill Company, and the Denver Lanes. By 1971, the gang's notoriety had spread across Los Angeles. The LA Brims, the Athens Park Boys, the Bishops, the Drill Company, and the Denver Lanes. By 1971, the gang's notoriety had spread across LA and Watts, the Grape Street Crips and the PJ Watts Crips. They feuded so much that the PJ Watts Crips even teamed up with the local blood set, the Bounty Hunter Bloods, to fight the Grape Street Crips. Wow. So that's actually the Bounty Hunter Bloods and the Grape Street Crips united. No, the PJ Watts Crips. So PJ Watts and Bounty Hunters got together to fight the Grape Street Crips. In the mid-1990s, the Hoover Crips rivalries and wars with other Crip sets caused them to become independent and drop the Crip name, calling themselves the Hoover Criminals. So I guess that's just, they use Crips to get in and get some people, and then once they get too big for themselves and they branch off. It's almost like goddamn open software for operating systems. You know what I mean? In late 1972, several gangs that felt victimized by the Crips due to their escalating attacks joined the Pyrus to create a new federation of non-Crip gangs that later became known as Bloods. A crazy thing about the Bloods and Crips was actually Raymond Washington. He pretty much created the Crips and the Bloods. And he created the Bloods because he beat up some, high school students. And then those two high school students went on to create their own gangs. And then those gangs became the Bloods. Raymond Washington and Tookie Williams were the founders of the Crips. Raymond Washington is going to get shot up and killed at 25. Which ensures his martyrdom and it ensures his immortality forever. Raymond Washington. And then Tookie Williams is going to get executed in 2005. Between 1972 and 1979, the rivalry between the Crips and Bloods grew, accounting for a majority of the gang-related murders in southern Los Angeles. Members of the Bloods and Crips occasionally fight each other, and as of 2010, are responsible for a significant portion of gang-related murders in Los Angeles. This rivalry is believed to be behind the 2022 Sacramento shooting where 6 people were killed. So I guess there was a mass shooting in 2022. In fact, mass shootings and terrorism, when it comes to the murders that gang members do, the murders of gang members are through the roof. Terrorism and mass murderers ain't got shit on gang members. Stanley Tookie Williams III was an American gangster who led the Crips gang in L.A. He and Raymond Washington had formed an alliance in 1971 that established the Crips as the Los Angeles' first major African-American street gang. During the 1970s, Tookie Williams was the de facto leader of the Crips and the prominent crime boss in South Los Angeles. Tookie Williams' activities with the Crips ended in 1979 when he was arrested for the murder of 4 people during 2 robberies. Convicted of the murders in 1981, sentenced to death, Tookie Williams spent over 2 decades on death row until he was executed by lethal injection. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor at the time in 2005. The highly publicized trial of Tookie Williams and extensive appeals for clemency sparked debate on the status of the death penalty in California. He was convicted of murdering people, and then he's going to say that he was innocent of those crimes, which, yeah, right. And then he does say that he was a wretched person. I mean, he's a gangster, right? So that's probably the least of what he did. He was a gangster from, 1971 to 1979. Him and Raymond Washington were gangsters for 8 years. And you're going to tell me that the last thing that he got arrested for, that's the only thing that... So I don't believe he was innocent of that. And even if he was, which he's not, he committed a series of other goddamn crimes. And it'd be nice if he would have told us all those things. That's the only reason I feel like to learn, right? To learn and get the full story. But some people, man, I don't know. What's his fucking name? Some serial killer. Ted Bundy or something. He announced that he was innocent in court too. So I guess you could be a wretched piece of shit. And I guess if you're a wretched, evil piece of shit, it's probably not that hard to lie about anything. Raymond Washington was from South Central's East Side, where he was a prominent gangster similar to Tookie Williams. They proposed a user influence in the respective regions to form the larger Crips street gang. The purpose for creating the Crips initially was to eliminate all street gangs and to create one bull force, a neighborhood watch in South Central. Well, that's actually what government is. Government is the main gang in town, right? It's a necessary evil. You got to have it, and why do you have to have it? To smash any of these smaller gangs that want to stand up and take. So the sovereignty isn't in a king or a man. The sovereignty in America would be in our nation states. It would be in Denver, in Sacramento, in Frankfurt, in Tallahassee, Mobile. Let's see. Williams said, "We started out, at least my intent was to, in a sense, address all the so-called neighboring gangs in the area, and to put in a sense, I thought I can cleanse the neighborhood of all this marauding gangs. But I was totally wrong, and eventually we morphed into the monster that we were addressing." Wow, Tookie Williams said that. Because, I mean, that's all the same things that the founders found out, okay? So you were a tyrant, you wanted to get rid of the tyrants, and then you became the tyrant. So how do we stop tyranny? How do we stop a man from, well, we've already figured it out. We elect them president for 4 years, maybe 8 years, but then they got to fucking go. We got 3 branches of government. We got the rule of law. We got a constitution. We got a Bill of Rights. So we already know the rules. We got a contract with our government already. And why do we have all those things? The 3 branches of government, the rule of law, federalism. We got a federal government, a federated state, and then we also have 50 states. And all those things are for checks and balances. All those things are for, if a king, the president, decide to be a tyrant, you got 50 states, you got elections, you also have an armed population, because we got a Bill of Rights. There's a Constitution, there's a Supreme Court, there's a legislature. There's a lot of checks for the president to not become a tyrannical piece of shit. Whatever he has to do has to be in the name of justice, establishing justice, promote the domestic tranquility, for the general welfare, to secure the blessings of liberty. To provide for the common defense. That's the one thing America does really do really well. We provide for the common defense. Tookie Williams stated he founded the Crips not with the intention of eliminating other gangs, but to create a force powerful enough to protect local black people from racism, corruption, and brutality at the hands of the police. Now what? At the time of the Crips' initial formation, there were only 3 Crips sets: Washington's East Side Crips, later called the East Coast Crips; Tookie Williams' West Side Crips, later the 8 Trey Gangster Crips; and the Compton Crips, led by a teenager named Mac Thomas. The Compton Crips, Mac Thomas. I keep seeing Mac Thomas is going to get murdered under mysterious circumstances in the mid-1970s. You live by the gun, you die by the gun. MS-13 has been accused of recruiting poor and at-risk teenagers. Joining is said to require being jumped in, subjected to vicious 13-second beating, and getting wet, carrying out a crime, often a murder for the gang. You got wet yet? Blood in, blood out. So in order to get into the gang, they got to beat you up for 13 seconds, and some people have been injured pretty substantially with that 13-second beating. And then getting wet, carrying out a crime, often for a murder for the gang. You got wet yet? Have we beat you up for the 13? Okay, now you're our brother. Now you're in. Now you're in. Leaving is potentially even more dangerous. Large chest tattoos brand members for life. Some factions are said to murder members who attempt to leave. That's apostasy. That's like the Muslims. February 23rd, 1973, Curtis Buddha Morrow was shot to death in South Central following a petty argument. Mac Thomas was murdered under mysterious circumstances in the mid-1970s. 1974, Raymond Washington was arrested for second-degree robbery and served 5 years in prison in Tracy. Raymond was soon murdered after his release from prison in 1976. Tookie Williams was wounded in a drive-by shooting while sitting on the porch of his house in Compton. The shooting was committed by members of the Bloods who shot at Tookie Williams from their car as he was letting his dog out for a walk in the evening. Damn, Tookie Williams. Even Tookie Williams has to deal with shit like this. Attempting to avoid, I said, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and that's pretty much true, but I wonder, growing up in a poor ghetto and being black in racist white America, if he didn't have to, pick up a sword. The shooting was committed by members of the Bloods who shot at Williams from their car as he was letting his dog out for a walk in the evening. Attempted to avoid getting hit, Tookie Williams dove to the ground from the porch, but was shot in both of his legs. Tookie Williams was told by doctors that he would never walk again, but after a nearly year-long process of physical rehabilitation and an intense workout regimen, he ultimately regained his ability to walk. After the shooting, Tookie Williams redeveloped a substance abuse problem when he began smoking PCP. Isn't that how it always goes? Everything's going well till the PCP decides to come waltzing into your life. Tookie Williams had begun dabbling in street drugs before PCP announces itself. Your new pimp. Tookie Williams had begun dabbling in street drugs around the age of 12, and as a preteen befriended a neighborhood pimp who, in return for performing errands for him, would reward Tookie Williams with money and drugs. 12, street drugs, 12 years old, particularly quaaludes and barbiturates, then known as Red Devils or marijuana. So quaaludes, Red Devils, and marijuana was his. Tookie Williams' personal life began to unravel. His maternal grandmother, with whom he was very close, had died in 1976. He lost his counseling job in 1977 after he was implicated in a robbery that was committed by 2 youths from a group home that Tookie Williams had supervised. Tookie Williams was denied an opportunity to compete in an amateur bodybuilding contest after it was discovered he was a gang leader. Tookie Williams would later appear on the 1970s variety show The Gong Show, performing a pose-down routine. Eventually, his gangster lifestyle was beginning to take a mental toll on him, which included a brief stay in the psychiatric ward of a hospital after Tookie Williams experienced a bad trip while high on PCP. With each of these setbacks, Tookie Williams increasingly found himself using PCP and supported his drug habit by intimidating and robbing drug dealers in South Central. Tookie Williams then rested his head on the gurney while medical technicians began inserting needles in his veins, although CNN reported the staff had difficulty inserting the needles and the usually short process took almost 20 minutes. Contra Costa Times reporter John Zimmerman added they had some trouble with the second IV, which was in the left arm. Tookie Williams at one point grimaced and looked almost out of frustration at the difficulty there. He had his glasses on the whole time. Tookie Williams kept his glasses on and he kept looking with a look of frustration on his face. Tookie Williams angrily asked the technicians, "You guys doing that right? You guys doing that right?" A female guard whispered to him and a second guard patted Williams' shoulder as if to comfort him. Tookie Williams shed one silent tear, but otherwise showed no emotion as he was executed. For 30 years, two rival LA gangs, the Bloods and Crips, had fought a deadly turf war in which hundreds died. Aquila Sherrills grew up in the Watts district of the city where straying into a rival gang's territory could prove fatal. In 1992, he decided that the violence had to stop and helped bring together rival Watts gang leaders to broker a peace deal between the two sworn enemies. In the first year after the truce, gang homicide dropped by 44%. However, the peace deal did not hold, and gang violence between the two groups is still a problem in Los Angeles. Aquila spoke to Witness about the truce in his neighborhood of Watts, a part of Los Angeles where people love intensely and hate fiercely. The Crips quickly established themselves as the largest street gang in Los Angeles, with increasing numbers and territory as their influence spread across low-income black neighborhoods. Raymond Washington, Tookie Williams, and Mac Thomas effectively held a monopoly on criminal activity in these areas and became the dominant crime bosses. Street gangs that had resisted being absorbed into the Crips soon formed their own Confederate alliance, the Bloods, to protect their independence and their interest in the criminal market. The founding of the Bloods sparked an instant rivalry between the new large gangs that saw a surge in violent crime in LA as neighboring Crip and Blood sets began using increasing violence to fight over territory and personal feuds. With the rise of media coverage, which put these new violent gangs on the front page, soon many disaffected black youths were running to join the Crips, many without ever being contacted by gang leaders. One story at the time stated, one of the gangs in the area is known as the Crips, which started out as Washington High School as an extortion and terror organization and spread to other schools where the gang members enrolled after being expelled from Washington, the police said. Now, I've always been a good American. Don't go around hurting people. Pay my taxes, pay my insurance, make sure I got my tags up to date. But being a good American, I haven't been able, nobody seems to be impressed. And if I go to jail, apparently a cop can arrest you and the whole fucking system will just keep fucking with you, even if you're completely innocent, in hopes of you maybe contempting yourself, and they say, see, that's why we did all that stuff. No, it's not. You made a decision, you made a wrong decision, and because you guys are evil, wicked pieces of shit, you just have to keep on going with your fucking wicked ways. So it sucks. Basically what Ann Kelly and Michael Gonzalez and Danny Sanchez is saying is they'll let criminals keep on criminalizing you. And the moment you say, hey, I'm going to defend myself, they'll say, no, fuck you. You don't get to defend yourself. You have to keep on getting goddamn criminalized. No, Phil Greene, he gets to fucking rape the shit out of you and your kids and your dogs and your kittens and your fucking crickets, what the fuck ever. I have to get goddamn fucked over. I have to get criminalized by Phil Greene to the day that I die because you don't know right from wrong. That's fucking bullshit. I don't know why you all love fucking evil so much, why you're on the side of fucking criminality so much, and if our economic system is based upon our institutions are crap. Our institutions are crap. Instead of having cops that are police officers that are crime fighters that goes out and stops the criminals, they just go out and pick on somebody and they throw people in jail. And maybe they have order. Maybe when things pop off, maybe they'll show up. Eventually, there's like 1 million police officers that will show up to the scene. You'd think so, at least. But I don't want to go to jail, and I don't want to be raped. I don't want to be raped by the inmates. I don't want to be raped by the police. And I got raped once. Nobody gave a damn. Yeah, I know, Mr. Privilege over here. Mr. Privilege, Mr. Get raped whenever he feels like it, and then tries to say, hey, don't do the crimes and the rapes and the murders, and then nobody says, that's a good point there. You're right. Of course I'm fucking right. But why the fuck can't you hear anybody? Jeffrey Dahmer was sitting there raping the troops. I thought we loved the troops. Oh, yes, God, save the troops. But Jeffrey Dahmer was raping the troops, and then they went to report it, and nobody listened to the troops, and then the troops killed themselves. So Jeffrey Dahmer got away with raping people. Why did the military not fucking see that Jeffrey Dahmer was a rapist, and that a rapist is a piece of shit that shouldn't be in with their ranks? Why didn't Jack Conway or Jeff Young know that prison rape is bullshit? So when I think about having to do a 3-year bid, because I fired 3 warning shots because I was being fucked with, the guy goes to one right-wing sovereign's house, he's delivering goods to another right-wing sovereign house, and he's fucking with me. This is supposed to be the make my day state. There's posse comitatus laws, make my day. You got all those affirmative defense, there's castle law, and then there's stand your ground law. But apparently in this make my day state, a couple warning shots, they screech. They shriek to the high heavens, oh my God! Oh my God! Which is insane, because those bastards would probably be on the side of gun rights for themselves. And I had 5 guns pointed at me that day. So if pointing a gun at a person and getting 4 other guys to point guns at people and kidnapping people, if those things are wrong, well, shit, you guys are a bit of hypocrites, aren't you? You're not allowed to shoot warning shots, but we're allowed to get 5 guys and point long guns right at you. So even if you sneezed, right? If Keith Schultz would have just sneezed. I talked to my mother and she said, just go out and talk to the cops. Just go out and talk to them. Have a little chitter chat with them. Huh. I go out and talk to him, and then Keith Schultz sneeze. And that's it. That's all she wrote for me. We must live 2 different countries. We must live in 2 different worlds. So I don't want to get raped by the prison guards, and I don't want to be raped by the inmates. And I'm not going to be part of the racist gangs, not a white supremacist, Nazi, fucking Confederate, KK, all the fucking, fuck all the racist. If there's some kind of rainbow group, I'll have to, but if not, then I'll have to pick, a brown or black gang. Because I'm not going to get raped. And then somebody's going to try to do something, a prison guard or an inmate, and I'm going to defend myself. So who knows if I'll ever return. But I know that me being a good American citizen and just keep on getting raped by everybody, raped by the planning and zoning, raped by the fucking cops that pull me over, raped by anybody and everybody, I'm fucking sick of it. Being a good American citizen should entitle me to be allowed to go to the grocery store in peace. But I got Phil Greeny fucking driving by my fucking house every fucking day, terrorizing the fuck out of me. For no reason. No reason whatsoever. I haven't done shit to that motherfucker. I didn't do shit to any of these motherfuckers. They're criminal fucking sons of bitches, and they don't know how to operate. No constitutions, no fucking rules. They didn't waste their time reading 100 fucking pages of planning and zoning. They didn't waste their time getting disrespected, paying for their permits. They came in, built their house, and just started living their life. And then started harassing the people that were lawful. So, not looking forward to it, but if a jury of my peers convicts me, then I'll have to join a brown or black gang. And even though I like being a good American citizen, the thought of joining a gang would mean I would have a family, I would have a brotherhood, and I wouldn't be afraid of standing up for myself. Only because I'm a good American citizen, if I stand up for myself and I live in a police state, then the cops will fuck me over because I stood up for myself, just like they're doing to Robert Thrash. Robert Thrash was about to get robbed of, what, $3,000? The guy wasn't going to go to sentencing. So that means the court don't even respect their own damn processes.